Today we're going to try something super different and exciting. We're going to try to make nigiri sushi out of monkfish. For this we need a few different things. Some rice vinegar, soy sauce, oil of your choice. We don't need much. We also need some salt and sugar. We're going to use sushi rice. We're also going to need some monkfish meat. I've frozen mine. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but let's get started here. So let's start by taking our rice. We're going to use just about 2 cups worth of dry rice. Our next step here is going to be to rinse the rice. So you can do this either on a colander like this or just a regular sieve. You want to rinse the rice until the water that comes out is entirely clear. Once the rice is clear, we're going to transfer it over to a pot and we're going to add about 3 cups worth of water to our rice, and we're going to let this rice boil now for about 20 minutes. It pretty much is done when all the water is gone. We're going to keep an eye on that. In the meantime, why don't we get started on the fish? So for the fish, I have chosen to use some monkfish tail meat. I have frozen this fish for about 5 or 6 days. I will tell you one thing. You should freeze the fish for about a week before you start eating it. You should freeze it pretty cold, much colder than what average freezers allows for. So that's going to be -4 degrees Fahrenheit for a week. Now this is super cold. Now the reason we're doing this is to kill the parasites in the fish. Now alternatively you could heat it up to 145 degrees Fahrenheit to kill parasites as well. Or you could cook it with lemon, which we're going to do another day. If you haven't done this, you run the risk of parasites. It's really up to you. We can take a little piece and fry it as well, so we can see how that turns out in the sushi here. But for now what we're going to do is that we're going to put this piece into marinate. Now the marination we're going to use is pretty simple. We're just going to do 50-50 sugar and salt. Now you can adjust these measurements depending on your preference. Generally for white and non-fatty fish you want to go a little high in the sugar, otherwise it may turn out a little bit salty. So I'm just going to mix this up, and once we have thawed and cleaned our fish here, we are ready to put it into our mixture. So I'm just going to cover the entire thing here, and I'm going to leave this in the refrigerator for no longer than half an hour. So after putting that first piece in the fridge, I decided, you know what, I want to try some of the aged meat as well. So I went and got some of the 6 days aged meat to see if it made any difference, and I just cut it up, and pretty much the same procedure as the other piece of monkfish meat. And into the fridge you go. So we're also going to try to put some of this monkfish liver on our sushi. So this liver I've cleaned up and we're going to cut it up. So generally you want to keep the slices within about 3 inches length. Let's do in 3 parts here. And again we're going to cut this in 2. Alright, so our rice is finally coming to a boil here. Maybe a little bit too much of a boil. Professional cooking show here, guys. I will tell you that you should be a little bit careful with parasites though. Let me tell you a funny story. So me and my brother went to India last year and we were staying cheap, you know, cheap hotels, cheap street food. And if you know street food, often it's not the cleanest. We were right outside of the Taj Mahal. I had eaten some, literally, I think I paid about 10 cents for a little dinner or snack. And suddenly that came back to bite me right outside the Taj Mahal. All night, 50 minutes walk away from the Taj Mahal. I laid on the floor of a not the cleanest hotel, puking all night. So definitely be a little bit careful. Now that's not to knock Indian food. It's delicious, but yeah, not always the cleanest. So as you can see, the rice is nearly done here. It's still a little bit mushy, so I'm just going to leave it in here to fry a little bit. But you need to be very careful that it doesn't burn to the bottom when it's this consistency. So I just transfer the rice here to a plate, cool down for, the recipe says 10 minutes for this rice, so I'm just going to leave it here. We're going to make a sauce to mix with the rice. So I started by taking half a cup's worth of rice vinegar, about 1/4 of a cup's worth of sugar, a spoon's worth of salt, and about a spoon's worth of oil. Now I'm using extra virgin because that's what I relate to the most, as you know. We're just going to heat that up until the sugar and salt dissolves. And while that is dissolving, why don't we go ahead and get our fish out of the fridge. It's been about half an hour, and rinse off all the salt and sugar from those. Alright, so our sauce is ready. So I'm going to spread it all over the rice we have here on this plate. And we're going to go ahead and incorporate that into the rice itself. So clean hands. Oh man, that vinegar feels fantastic on my my fingers with all these cuts on them. As you probably guessed, I've cut myself a lot over the past week as I've been making these videos. As you probably know, I'm not a professional chef. I just love cooking and I want to share my love for cooking. And you know what? We have such good access to seafood. I know how to make videos for YouTube pretty well, so I just kind of went for it. Follow your dreams, right? Isn't that what they say? So I really appreciate you guys watching these videos too. Let me just finish mixing this stuff in here. I'm gonna place this to the side for a little bit. All right, so we're ready to cut up the monkfish here. So we're gonna cut it in about 1/2 inch width. This is the edge of what we should use. And we're gonna make them about 3 inches long or so. I'm thinking for this one, it's not so big, so let's cut it in half. Here we have a nice piece. All right, so we have our 4 main pieces, and I can feel that the one that is aged more is significantly softer than the fresh ones. I'm thinking the taste is going to be a little better as well on the aged one, but we'll find out later. We also have our roe here ready and cut up, and we're gonna try a little bit ankimo that we made on day 2 of this challenge. So I'm gonna cut this also up into about the same thickness. Now if you want to see how to make this, check the video description and you'll find it there. Alright, so we're about ready to start making the nigiri here. Definitely don't expect like Jiro Dreams of Sushi here. It's gonna be more like crappy Japanese flute music with white guy trying to make sushi. For this we will need some cold water. You could add vinegar to this, but for obvious reasons, not for me, just keep clean hands. Also need a towel here to dry off afterwards. We have our fish ready, and as well as our roe. Use our fingers, just wetten them a little bit here. We also need wasabi. If you want to, you don't have to use wasabi. Grab a little bit of rice. If you use 3-4 fingers to grab some. So you want to get enough rice so that it's a little bit smaller than a ping pong ball, they generally say. And we're going to make like an indent into the rice like that. So obviously you need very wet hands, otherwise it's going to stick all over. So we turn that around like that. And if you want wasabi at this point, you can add a little bit to the back of the fish piece there. Take the fish and place the wasabi down like so. And here comes the flute music. All right. So it's going to squeeze it together like this. And then we can turn it around and we're going to do it until it looks good. So if you have any nigiri sauce, you could put that over as well at this point, but I don't think it's necessary because we cured the meat with the salt. Also, we're going to use some sauce when we eat this. Plate that. Yeah, and you don't want to push really hard when you do this. You want to do like light actions so the rice bowl doesn't get too hard. All right, let me just finish up the last ones here and we'll get to serving them. All right, guys. Everything is finally ready here. Dum 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 dum. So this is ponzu sauce, but it would be totally fine to serve it along with regular soy sauce as well. But let's try it pure first. So this is going to be the aged monkfish, and this is going to be the fresher one, 2 days aged. So let's try the 2 days aged one first. And of course, this is funny because I don't remember which one I put wasabi in, so this could go both ways. Cheers. Taste-wise, it's quite mild. I would say the monkfish flesh was a little firmer than I expected, but I think that's because this is the non-aged one. Very mild, mostly the rice is tasting. Let's try the aged one as well. You can see it's a lot more shiny, it looks more aged. It doesn't smell much though, so cheers. Wasabi! So I will say that before the wasabi kicked in there, it is a little bit softer and definitely more sweet in the taste. Not so much stronger taste, but sweeter. And then the wasabi kicked in and I started crying. For those of you who are curious about the cooked one, I did fry this one on a pan quickly just to test it out in case you don't want to cook this, eat this raw with parasites and all that. So let's try this one with a tiny dip of sauce here. That is very good. I think cooking them like that, just quickly frying it or flashing it in a pan, definitely a good option. It does bring out a little bit more of the taste as well. Try the liver one, ankimo one. This one I did like a lot when we tried it the other day. The liver is the best one for sure. Super good, so rich in taste, and it is very creamy. The monkfish liver is something I think is definitely very underutilized. It's a very, very good piece of food there. Let's try the roe here as well. I'm a little bit worried about that, but we will try with a little bit of ponzu sauce. Cheers. To be honest with you, it's quite a mild taste on that one as well. I think the first one with a slightly, very, very lightly aged monkfish and the roe, those two were the ones that I don't think I would recommend. The other three, especially the fried one as well as the liver, I think were my favorite. Now the aged monkfish was pretty alright. Take from that what you will. I will put together a recipe on my website, so if you want to make this yourself, you can check that out. I'll link it in the video description. And I would love to hear from you guys, by the way. If you have any cool monkfish recipes that you recommend, I would love to hear it, because I'm making monkfish every day this month, as you know. Thank you if you want to contribute, and see you tomorrow where we will make some monkfish chips. That's going to be a scary one.